And I didn't think of it at that moment in these terms, but what I'm really doing is scanning the cultural record and looking for evidence, and this is, in many societies, we only have the iconography, right? We don't necessarily have inscriptions. And we may have more recent, we don't have the ancient history, but we have the native orature is a primary historical record, so that has to be integrated. And then there are the historical records, and we have to look at those too, because in the corners of those imperial records, including the Greeks and the Romans, but the Chinese, any of the literate societies that became world dominating forces, there are bits of testimony about some of the peoples that they colonized, and these strange people that have women chiefs, right? And so I'm starting to find these examples, and it really became more and more apparent that although you have queens in Europe or, some other parts of the world, some of the African queens, for example, that are in more ranked societies, it's a different order of magnitude in terms of the on the ground flesh and blood authority of women inside the matricultures. That it was because it's not a social hierarchy in the way that we've been taught was somehow supposed to be the sign of a developed, this whole thing about development is totally colonial. And so, what I was doing after a while, I began to think about it in terms of pattern recognition. So here's an example with, I was finding a lot of stories in the library, it would be under anthropology, it would be under ethnology. That's where you would find these oral traditions of native peoples in South America or Eastern Africa or wherever. It wasn't under history at that point in time. And so I would be finding examples of women who led resistant movements against colonization. And a lot of times they were seers, diviners, priestesses, prophetic women. They were spiritual leaders who, their purview as protectors of their people then necessarily included leading a resistance against invasion. Or maybe the conquest had already taken place and then they did an uprising against it. And so this was a pattern that was in the information I was finding, that gradually I would begin to see, wow, there's something here.